People typically leave your business as a customer for two reasons. Think about it for yourself. Do you think a customer stays the more money they spend or the less? So the importance of a value escalator. Now, some people have heard it called a value ladder. I've always referenced it as a value escalator because I want to take my clients on it, not force them to make steps and climb themselves. So anyway, small little nuance. Some of you have heard it called a value ladder. I'll refer to it as a value escalator, but it's the same thing. So let's talk about the importance of it and why it's so valuable. And most recently, I was out with Russell Brunson. We were talking about what we do, and he made some really great observations for me, and I want to share some of those with you today. He asked me some questions about the journey that I take my clients on, and hopefully you find this is helpful, because when I started to actually tell someone else, I realized how confusing it was. And where I want to help you is just create some simplicity in a value escalator for you. And he looked at me and he said, Chaz, that's not a value escalator, that's a value maze. And it really opened up my eyes to the importance of creating a clear, simple value escalator for your client. Now, why is that important? Well, it really should have three main components, potentially a fourth, we'll get to that, but three main components. It should have a low, mid, and high ticket offer, right? So low is where someone comes into your world. Sometimes it can even start with a free one, right? So when I say get into your world, what does that mean? That means you have their contact information at minimum, or they are a customer of yours. They are now in your ecosystem as a business, and that's where it starts. And so many people don't understand this. They're now your customer. That's not where they stay. You have to take them on a journey. There's lots of businesses who are starting to reinvent the way that they do this. So let's talk about the value of that. The first step is that low offer. That could be any kind of price point, depending on your industry, anywhere from like a few dollars to a few $100s, depending on what you do and what you sell in products and services. But that's where the implementation of a product or service starts, right? That first level, that low ticket offer is where the implementation starts. What you want to do is you want to take them on a journey to the next step, right? You're clearly identifying this is where you are and this is where you want to get to, way up here. This is the journey that you're going to go on. And to get there, you have to take these steps to get to that place. And the key is you go, what is the next obvious thing that they want, right? What is the next obvious thing that they need? So when you go from the low ticket offer, which is really where that implementation, they really get in and they learn it, to the next, which is a mid offer, that's where retention happens. And this is what is fascinating, and the thing that I'm discovering even in our own business with some of my business partners and others, is they're not understanding that this step, oh my gosh, we're gonna ask them to spend more money, right? Hey, we got our best customers. Why would we ask them to spend more? Because that's where retention happens. The more money they spend, they're gonna stay with you longer. I recently heard this as well in this inner circle conversation. It was like people typically leave your business as a customer for two reasons. One, you offend them, which doesn't happen very often. It's actually tough to offend a customer unless they're just looking to be offended, which there's a group of people for that. So number one, you offend them, or number two, you stop selling them. There was a business coach, I heard this story. He had this coaching program and it was working so well for years and people went through it and they were in this coaching program for like 6-7 years. They were at a different conference and they're like, hey, I remember seeing you at this business conference. I haven't seen you there. Why did you stop going? And they're like, he stopped selling me. What's the next step? And so because of that, they stopped purchasing. So remember, the first step is implementation. The second is retention, which carries on. And the third, which is your high ticket. This is where a lot of businesses struggle. They're like, I don't know what high ticket really is. For me, we start people at like $50 a month or even less, depending on the front end things they come in on, to say a $500 a month product to a $25,000 a year. You could see that range. And at the highest level, it's not necessarily just retention. Now it's customization. How do I take what you offer and sort of customize it for me as a customer, right? Customized. That's where the highest level, high ticket value comes in, right? So mine's a coaching program that's sort of customized to them as an individual. Now here's where the key to a value escalator really comes in. And this is some of the best wisdom I've ever received in this, which was when your low, mid, and high offers are lined up and working, don't touch them. Leave them alone, let them be, let them sit, because they're working. If you as a visionary, you as a business owner want to get creative, where do you do that? You do that on the front end. On the front end, which is all the creative things out here that lead people into your low or mid-ticket offers, that's where you get creative. And so for me, I was always, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? And what that does is that creates a maze instead of that value escalator, right? What's the next natural step? So hopefully that adds clarity to why you want to build a value escalator. And it can be as simple as 3 products. 3 products. Some of the best that I've seen are like between 3 and 5 steps on a value escalator. More than that, it becomes so difficult, right? A confused mind says no. it becomes so confusing to what's the next step, next, that I just stop making decisions. And one of the last sort of pluses to this value escalator that you can do is a lot of times businesses will have low, mid, high, and they're like, yeah, we're making a lot of money selling these one-off products and services. What you can do underneath all of it is have some sort of a continuity or subscription product or service that then captures like a safety net under all of it, right? So for my business, what we did is we added something recently called the Producer's Playlist, which we'll put a link in here if you'd like access to it. It's every bit of content that we've done that we heard back from people like, I would love to have these YouTube videos or your trainings or your workshops on a podcast player like that I could take on the go, that I could listen to. So we heard that, like, let's create that as a solution, but not add it as like this step on the value ladder that's one more confusing thing, but let's have it on the bottom as like a safety net, if you will. So we can always lead people to it, to get it for sure. But then if anyone ever wants to cancel on any one of those 3 steps on our value ladder, what's the thing we can still catch them in? This podcast player is the safety net underneath all of it, that we can catch them. So for like $29.95 a month, they may say no to this mid-ticket offer, but we can catch them here and still create revenue, and now they're still in our ecosystem. So hopefully you see the value in creating a value escalator and why you need to have each of those steps for implementation, retention, and customization, and then create the safety net underneath. This will create a valuable asset that if someone ever came and looked at your business and said, man, it's clear on the path you take a customer, you've now added a multiple in value to your business. If you found this helpful, go ahead, like and subscribe and share it out with a friend.